I'm very pleased to announce the opening of the website. Now, whoever has to do whatever, please do the needful. Well, it's Vijayadashmi. Greetings to everybody. It's with all the scientific background of IITs, I think it's good to remember that we have chosen an auspicious day to launch TouchStone. It's a funny stone, TouchStone, because nobody has touched it yet. It is a stone remaining to be touched. Whatever has to be said about it has been said. I doubt if I can add anything else. I fear that all of you may be so crystal clear about what it's all about that any further comment on it might only confuse you. As you know, the governor of the central banks are not supposed to talk with clarity, but they must appear clear. That is the job of the central bank governor. And Alan Greenspan, who had a long stint as the US central bank chairman, and was considered remarkably successful during his tenure and remarkably unsuccessful as soon as he stepped down from his role, was once making a presentation to the senators, US senators, and it was a rather complex subject. The subject by itself is complex, and then Reserve Bank governors, central bank governors complexified further. So one of the senators apparently said, Governor, we understand. So Alan Greenspan apparently looked at him very deeply and said, Mr. Senator, in case you have understood what I'm saying, then I have probably not been clear enough. And if I have been clear enough to you, then you have not understood what I'm saying. And I think you might feel somewhat similar about TouchStone. Everybody has spoken about it. So I thought I would just take a slightly different sort of metaphorical look as to what TouchStone is trying to do, which it hasn't yet started doing. You know, the sociologist, anthropologist, very talented Israeli young man called Yuval Noah Hariri, some of you might have read his recent books. He has written a fabulously readable book called Sapiens, about how human beings came on the planet. It is about 350 pages, and I don't propose to summarize it today. But somewhere in the middle of the book, he makes a point. He says, on this planet, there have been 8.9 million species that have walked or existed. 8.9 million. Human beings are only one of them. And yet, the balance of 8.899999 species have gone through the cycle of birth, death, extinction, evolution. But the human species is the only one, Homo sapiens, who have not only evolved, but have come to dominate the planet. For good or for bad, it's a separate subject. And then he goes on to imagine an experiment in the Wembley Stadium. It's an imaginary experiment, it's not a real experiment. He says if we put in 100,000 chimpanzees into the Wembley Stadium and lock them in, very soon there'll be chaos. Initially, they will scratch each other and do the things that chimpanzees do, but very soon, there will be no space. They'll be fighting with each other, scratching each other, then killing each other, and there'll be neither order nor chimpanzees left in due course. You can do that with all the other 8.9 million species. When they are constrained within a certain space, which is inadequate, they cannot find order out of it. They will create chaos. And the law of thermodynamics tells us that that is the nature which is called entropy. Human beings are the only species. If you put 100,000 human beings into Wembley Stadium, and that will be in no Lebensraum, nobody can move around. Initially, they will scratch each other and damage each other, fight each other. But in due course, that feeling of an enlightened self-interest will start dawning. And the human species, the only species that can sit and negotiate, collaborate, and find a better way to do it. And it is this skill, he has listed 4 or 5 others, that distinguishes the human species from every other species. The ability to do what is in its enlightened self-interest through discussion, negotiation, disagreeing, yet negotiating. And if you look at the travails of what's happening around in global politics, economics, you see signs of this. Frustrating though it is that sometimes we somehow seem to find a way around it. I was reminded of this as I thought of the concept that IIT AC have developed along with the ministry. He referred, I think Ravi said there are 200,000 alumni, or Gopal said it, 300,000 alumni. That sounds enough to fill up the Wembley Stadium. And they don't collaborate with each other, not yet. But more importantly, there is probably 10 times that number of other institutes, alumni, who are also spread everywhere. And their knowledge tends to get compartmentalized for a variety of reasons which all of us know and doesn't require any elaboration on an afternoon like this. And what TouchStone would seek to do, these are all plans, these are not anything that's happened, is to be like a platform. Like in e-commerce, you say it's a platform. And you say, well, what the hell is a platform? I only know a railway platform. You say, no, it's a place where, it's a marketplace where people who can supply motor cars or taxi seats can contact those who need a taxi seat, and somebody else does all the mumbo jumbo in between, and you get a taxi ride or a special meal or whatever. So TouchStone, I hope, will be able to create some sort of a platform. It may or may not be electronic. We'll figure it out. Where people who want to collaborate, cooperate, find out, throw grand challenges at each other can do so. That is being sponsored by IIT Alumni Center or initiated by them, to be more precise, is incidental. I don't think you have to be an IITian to participate in this. But it can be a very powerful platform. Because if you look at the current systems that we have, there are plenty of money in the government system to promote innovation. It goes through various channels and laboratories and networks. All of us know about them. But people have very strong ideas as to what works and what doesn't work, including people like myself, by the way. Because you talk to an IIT director, he will tell you, oh, this doesn't work, we've tried it. You talk to an Indian Institute of Science, he will say something else. You talk to a bureaucrat in Delhi, he will say something else, and so on and so forth. Our NRA brothers have their own views. But if you can neutralize their predilections, their biases, and all of us must admit we have biases, and create a platform where anybody can talk to anybody with some funding. The government is also seeking a bypass from the sclerotic systems that has been created. I'm not blaming government, I'm not being critical, I'm not being cynical. I'm merely stating, at my age I know that your body gets to be a bit sclerotic. That doesn't mean I have been a bad guy through my life, it just means that systems tend to get sclerotic. And government systems also can become sclerotic. If it wants a bypass, and say, I don't want to put it back in. If I've got a 500 crores or 1,000 crores to put, I put it back into the system, it will get clogged into the same pipe. I want to create a new pipe. So it's a way of government also demonstrating that I want to bypass this in some way. Because by the time I clear up all these other pipes in the plumbing system, it will be very difficult. Whether IIT AC and the alumni can provide that pipe and allow funds to flow with ideas is the challenge that TouchStone faces. And I think we don't want all the money to be spent on setting up a big center in another building with lots of people. It's quite remarkable that people like Gopal and Ravi have managed to assemble our first team of volunteers. There is energy there, there is enthusiasm there. But we don't have the cylinder in which it can fire, the energy can fire yet. We don't have the transmission system for it yet. We don't have the friction-free delivery to the wheels yet. So it will take some time before the automobile can move. But when it moves, it can move very fast. And this will be the technology challenge that we will have. Changing attitudes, changing needs. And so I hope, if you say, well, it doesn't matter if TouchStone itself works or not, because there should be 20 TouchStones, 200 TouchStones, I don't know. It's not given to the IITs only to do this, anybody can do it. But you're trying to develop a model, this is a laboratory. This is a prototype you're trying to make. If this works, many more can come up. So for me, this is a very significant sort of experiment. It's like what Norman Borlaug did back in the 60s, when he said, why don't you take this small Mexican plant and see if it can make some wheat or rice for you? And people said, that little plant making wheat and rice? No way. And then some things happened and we all know the history. In the same way, this is like Neil Armstrong's small step, which was a big step for mankind. And that should be the dream that we have to make this happen. Because there are one hell of a lot of chimpanzees in the Wembley Stadium who need to talk to each other, but they can't talk to each other. Not because they're bad people, some of them may be a bit egocentric, that's all right, we are all egocentric. But because there aren't mechanisms for them to communicate, there aren't liquid systems of passage for them to share the ideas, liquid systems of passage. So if somebody wants to get up in the morning and say, why is India the diabetes capital of the world? Is it our diet? Is it our DNA? Is it grand sweets? Why are we becoming the diabetes capital? Why are we the only country left in the world with sickle cell disease? It's a large question. And then you say, assuming you're a researcher in that particular field, that I want to be able to talk to somebody else who knows a lot about sickle cell disease. Today, if you have to find out who that is, it's going to be very difficult. I would like to believe that when TouchStone is up and running and matures gradually, you should be able to say a grand challenge. Here's a grand challenge for India, solving sickle cell disease. I have done the research on sickle cell disease and this is what I have found. But I'm stuck at these 4 ports or gates. And somebody from Chuhuahu or Hawaii comes up and says, hey, I've done this work. And that's the kind of vision or excitement that we think TouchStone can happen. It will be a long journey, but every long journey has to begin with a small step. And I'm deeply honored that you have asked me to be here as part of this. Thank you very much.